It is now time for you to use those same reading skills and theme finding skills we've been talking about in class on your own once again. Only now we've done more practice, and so hopefully you're a little more developed than you were a couple of weeks ago. So, since we're talking about theme, we should probably define our terms. Theme is for fiction. Stories that are fictional have themes. Nonfiction, whether it's short articles, longer articles that tell true stories, have central ideas. And that kind of can be blended a little bit, but that's the basic terminology. Themes, whenever you're reading a story, can be lessons the author wants us to learn or think about, or they can be issues that come up as part of the plot but may not get resolved. It doesn't have to be a thing the author intentionally uses as a message, nor does it have to be a thing that is figured out by the end of the story. Sometimes it just comes up and is just there, and so you sort of discuss it that way. For example, a lesson we might have learned from Beowulf is about the costs of being ignorant, because they all celebrated defeating Grendel, and then suddenly Grendel's mom is there, and that's a much bigger problem. An issue that doesn't necessarily get resolved but comes up and is therefore a theme is the struggle between good and evil. It's not really decided, but it's a metaphor for it, and so that's there, and you could use that as a theme too. Central idea of anything nonfiction, a true story, although oftentimes if a story is nonfiction and it's written like a story, then you can have themes and nobody really cares. This is for persuasive as much as anything. But central ideas are very similar to theme, as you can see. They oftentimes will work just like a thesis statement. It's the idea the author is trying to support with every other part of the piece. So, for example, when you're reading your articles here in a minute, you'll see that the author has some sort of idea or several ideas being repeated or being used as the sort of premise for the article. Those are usually central ideas. Now, in order for us to talk about central ideas or actually figure them out, we need to review some of the reading strategies we've already done. And the whole point of that is to make sure that we are comprehending 100% of what we're reading. It means we don't leave any words that we don't know alone. We make sure we understand every sentence and all of that, because if we understand what we're reading, then we can do all the other conclusion drawing that comes up. At the very beginning of the semester, we talked about the reading strategy of slowing down and rereading or reading ahead if you're not sure about something. The idea is to control the pace of how fast or how slow you're reading, depending on what you're trying to accomplish and in what time frame, but more importantly, to help you focus on understanding rather than just getting it done. Because if you're reading just to getting it done, chances are you're going to miss something, and then it makes your life more difficult anyway. Remember, reading for school isn't meant to entertain you. It can, but more often it's meant to challenge you or to work on some skill in some way. So read accordingly. Another one of the skills we reviewed is summarizing. We did this a few different ways. So there's a couple of ways that works. One, when you are reading certain sections of your reading, whatever it might be, you make little notes along the sides or on a note sheet of some kind to sort of keep track of whether you understand or not what you're reading and to make sure you're writing down important information. The other kind of summary, of course, comes at the end of reading something, where you write down the most important points of what you're seeing. Either one is an important thing because it lets you understand what you're reading if you use it as a tool to do so. Another reading strategy we covered was drawing conclusions. Now, we've done this quite a bit. The strategy actually was basing it on what's directly stated in your reading. It turns out that all the other things, themes for example, anything that isn't directly stated, can be determined from what is directly stated. It's a matter of finding those things that are directly stated, making connections with to each other, with them, with things you already know, and also thinking about why the author has them there, everything else. And so the point is that you're looking for specific things that are directly stated in what you're reading, and on your notes you should see a list of things like that. We just went over with The Simpsons in that clip from Tombstone, finding and properly stating evidence. So the first thing that matters is you've got to have a purpose for what you're reading. You're looking for something, either the central idea or themes or just answers to questions or whatever. But the point is you're looking for that, and so you're looking for those directly stated details that will get you to be able to draw the conclusion that you're looking for. So what matters besides that, which is finding the evidence that lets us draw the conclusions, is how we state that when we write the answers. And the three basic most important things are this. One, you have to be accurate about the people, places, and things you're referring to. Don't use general pronouns like he and they unless you've already said specific names, for example. When you are trying to describe how a theme works, instead of constantly worrying about summarizing big chunks of the text or trying to say something other than what's in the text, just let the text say your evidence for you. Simply use one of your summaries sentences, for example. Say what it said. Down the road, we're going to practice directly quoting, and that is obviously letting something say it for you. Either way, the point is that you're worried about using what's in your reading, not just trying to, hopefully pull something out of thin air. And the last part is making connections between parts of the reading. So this means looking for repeated ideas, because oftentimes those are themes. Repeated descriptions, repeated events, all kinds of things. That can also be things that happen in the beginning and their relationship with other parts of the story. So, for example, if something happens to somebody and then the fallout of it takes all the way through the rest of the story, then you can make connections between all those things and trace them all back to the original event. Things like that. The idea is you're thinking about not just what's happening and directly stated, but you are then connecting all the other parts of it so that everybody sort of sees a map of the story, so to speak. One strategy I want to add for this is asking questions. Now, this is a thing a lot of you do anyway, and it's a really simple strategy. It just means periodically, just like you do when you summarize something, you ask a question. Small question, big question, but you're thinking actively about what you're reading. So even simple questions like, why did that character decide to do that? Perfectly fine. The idea, though, is that you're thinking about what you're after and not just passively reading. This is also a good testing strategy because this gives you purpose, and it's a thing you're trying to figure out. It's important. So, to review, the central idea of a nonfiction text is very similar to the theme of a fictional story. In order to figure out the central idea, we need to use reading strategies, just like when we read all types of stories, although we didn't read Mouse in this class. Remember, reading for school is meant to challenge you and make you think. It also requires a more structured approach to reading and understanding. This is precisely why we've been doing all these things step by step, and we keep adding blocks to it. So we started simply with comprehension. You're underlining important ideas and defining unfamiliar words. We built onto that. Suddenly you are also summarizing in chunks what you're reading and then writing a big summary at the end. We've added on to that. We've started talking about drawing conclusions based on the things that you're seeing and directly stated in the story. So we keep building up. And so the next steps are going to become more complicated and also more refined. We're going to get better at detecting themes and thinking about multiple meanings and everything else. So it's important that you go in with the right mindset, because this is for school and it's not for home. And believe me when I say these skills will help you no matter what kind of education you plan on getting after high school, or even if you don't plan on getting one, because these are the kinds of critical thinking skills that literally every employer, the military, colleges, everything look for. That's the whole point of this, is to give you those critical thinking skills to be a useful adult regardless of what you choose. And that's what we want. Good luck on your assignment, and thanks for listening.